The NFL draft isn't just one round. There were still loads of great players on the board going into day 2 for rounds 2 and 3, so I'm going to go over my favourite and my least favourite picks from day 2. Make sure you subscribe for more NFL draft content. I've already posted my first round grades video, so go and check that out if you haven't already, and there's plenty more draft content to come, so make sure you subscribe to stay in the loop. And before we get into the picks, let me just briefly remind you how I do my grading. I'm going to have it here on the screen, but I'll also talk you through it now. An A+ is a home run hit. That's a fantastic player at fantastic value, and it's going to be a great fit for your team. An absolute steal of a pick. An A pick is still a really good pick, great player, just doesn't have the value aspect that A+ has. B is a good pick, good player. I might have gone in a different direction personally, but can't hate the pick at all. C is fine, nothing egregious, but certainly not a very strong pick. D is a bad pick, and F is a hard fail. Massive reach, poor fit, don't see the vision there whatsoever. Big fail. I'm very happy I get to finally talk about my Houston Texans. We traded out of the first round, so I didn't get to talk about them in the first round grade video. And we did pass on a few offensive line prospects by trading out of the first round, which I wasn't particularly pleased about, but my Texans did redeem themselves with this pick, taking Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver from Iowa State, and I've given this an A+. I had Jaden Higgins as my wide receiver 3. He was my 17th ranked player, as you can see below me right now, and I projected him to be like a Nico Collins-esque style of wide receiver, and now he gets to play with him. I saw true wide receiver 1 potential in Jaden Higgins. Now, I know he's not there yet, but in this offense, playing alongside Nico Collins, who is the wide receiver 1, he doesn't need to be that guy. As a wide receiver 2, I absolutely love him. He's another 6'4", 214 pounds, so big-bodied wide receiver, and he moves really well for his size. Trying to guard him and Nico Collins as 2 big-bodied receivers is going to be really difficult for defenses. Now, 29% of Jaden Higgins' targets were fade routes, so 42 were thrown at him and only 16 were catchable, and he caught all 16. But fundamentally, a big reason why he didn't produce, I think, as well as he could have done, is because a lot of those balls were uncatchable. Now he's playing with CJ Stroud, one of the more accurate deep ball throwers in the league. I think this guy is really going to produce straight out the gate. I absolutely love this pick. And the best bit is, it didn't even end with Jaden Higgins. We also drafted his Iowa teammate Jaylen Null with the 15th pick in the 3rd round. Null was my wide receiver 5. I was very high on both the Iowa State guys. I was absolutely ecstatic when we took Jaden Higgins. I even said on my Twitter, @DomCorbsNFL, go and follow me if you don't already. By the way, I said, well, it's too bad, Seahawks fans. We're going to draft Jaden Higgins with our 2nd overall pick, and we did. So I was really pleased about that. But then the fact that we also got Jaylen Null, who I was really high on as well, honestly, absolutely made my day. And Null was my wide receiver 5 because I thought he was the most explosive slot receiver in this class. Frankly, I think he's a great deep threat. And again, which quarterback is one of the better deep ball throwers in the NFL? It's CJ Stroud, and this guy just knows how to get open deep down the field. It's not that he relies on his speed, which he does have. It's that he understands how to kind of put stress on safeties and how to put stress on corners when they're playing in more deep and off coverage. And he just knows, he puts rocker steps on them. He's putting moves on them. He's got really good deep ball tracking ability as well. He has a video of his 15 or more yard receptions this year alone, this season, and it's over 3 minutes long. Like, this guy is a true deep threat with Nico Collins as the 1, Jaden Higgins as the other outside wide receiver, and then Jaylen Null in the slot. I absolutely love that wide receiver core. We do still have a few question marks about our offensive line, don't get me wrong, but I cannot complain about these 2 receivers that the Texans drafted, and I can guarantee you now I will be getting at least one of these guys' jerseys. If the money's there, maybe 2. Now, don't worry, it's not just my team that I'm going to be praising here. I would have praised any team that took those guys. I'm not trying to be a homer. But the Patriots also had a fantastic day 2. They took Trayvon Henderson, the running back from Ohio State, with the 38th overall pick. And this guy was one of my favorite players in this class. He's so explosive, so electric. He's fantastic as a rushing threat and as a passing threat. He can score from almost anywhere on the field, it seems. He's the best running back in this class in pass protection as well. And I just love what he can do from the running back position. And he's a massive upgrade to the running backs the Patriots already have, which frankly has been pretty stale the last few years. Definitely no juice there. Henderson's going to bring that juice. And I would still, though, give Ramondre Stevenson a good amount of carries here. I think you get the best version of Trayvon Henderson when he's on 12 to 15 touches a game rather than, say, 20 to 25 touches a game. He had his best season this year in Ohio State with Quinshon Judkins, and I don't think you want to make Henderson the bell cow. And what's so great is that by having Ramondre Stevenson there, who is a 91st percentile weight running back, this guy is a bruiser, a hammer, you then have Trayvon Henderson as the scalpel. And I think that combination gives you something like the Lions have with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And we've seen how well that's worked in the league. And it just means that Drake May has another weapon, one which is not only going to help him in terms of putting up yards and putting up production and scoring touchdowns, but one that's also going to help protect him in pass pro. Love the player, love the fit. I had him ranked as my 32 overall player, so not a steal, not an A+, but still a fantastic pick. But as I said, the Patriots didn't stop there. It's not just one pick that I'm praising for the Patriots here. I'm praising both, because with the 69th overall pick, they then went and drafted Kyle Williams, the wide receiver from Washington State. And I love Kyle Williams. He was my wide receiver 4, split Jaden Higgins and Jaylen Null. He has a fantastic release package. I've said so many times now, he's like Neo at the line of scrimmage. He's literally untouchable. I think that immediately plays in the NFL. He's a big play threat. He's the only wide receiver in this class with more than 8 yards after the catch per reception and over 10 contested catches. He has a contested catch rate of 62.5%, which for a smaller wide receiver is absolutely fantastic. And he's got really good vertical speed. He ran 21.36 miles an hour at the Senior Bowl, where again, he was just chefing up the opponents on the line of scrimmage. He runs really hard after the catch. He's good with the ball in his hands. He is almost like a one-man army on offense. And the Patriots this season have now added Will Campbell with their first overall pick, like that pick, my OT1. Morgan Moses in free agency, get a vet along the offensive line, brilliant. Trayvon Henderson, just spoken about him. Kyle Williams, and they've also now added Stephon Diggs. That makes me feel really confident about the Patriots, but specifically Drake May's outlook for this season. Drake May now has weapons, he has protection, and he's a quarterback I think that we could see take a massive step. So these picks, whilst they're great in their own right, have an added value for me in helping their third overall pick from last year take those next steps to potentially be the franchise quarterback that I think and many others think he could be. With the 39th overall pick, Luther Burden finally comes off the board as the Chicago Bears take him. And I was also torn on Burden. I think that he is a really talented player, but I definitely had my questions about him and his play style. And I wasn't totally surprised that he fell out of the first round. But at 39, having him falling to the second round, having him not even taken particularly early, I know it is in the earlier side, but it wasn't with the first overall pick. I think him having that chip on his shoulder is actually going to be the best thing for him. Burden is a dynamic yards after the catch weapon. And in the Chicago offense, he's now essentially wide receiver 3, which isn't a knock on Burden at all, but it just means that he's in a fantastic situation to produce because there's so many other offensive weapons that opposing defenses need to account for. You've got DJ Moore, you've got Rome Odunze, you've also got Colston Loveland as well. And obviously Ben Johnson himself is someone that is just fantastic at scheming guys open and putting the offense in the best position to succeed. And Ben Johnson with all of those guys, and now Luther Burden, with Caleb Williams, is going to be absolute box office. I think it's a really great landing spot for Burden. I think it's great value. I think it's a really good fit. I think that what I ultimately said with Burden is that if he was drafted at like 15 overall, I could really see a world in which we looked back at the draft in a few years' time and said, oh God, Luther Burden went at 15. That wasn't a great pick. But now he's at 39. I think the opposite's going to be true. I think we might be saying, oh my God, how could Luther Burden have fallen all the way to pick 39? So I think it's a really great pick. Now, it's not all roses and daisies. I'm not positive about every single pick. And one I definitely did not like was the New Orleans Saints taking Tyler Shook, the quarterback from Louisville, with the 40th overall pick. I think, frankly, the Saints burnt a high-value draft pick here. This team has a lot of holes. They are firmly in a rebuild. Yeah, it's great they didn't reach on a quarterback with the 9th overall pick, but it's only now the second least bad scenario for them to reach on a quarterback with their 2nd overall pick. There were so many better players on the board at this time. Donovan Ezaraku, JT Tuimoloau, Will Johnson, Siobhan Ravel, whatever it is, there were still lots of talented players on the board. And like I said, the Saints are firmly in a rebuild, and they're not really looking to take a quarterback this year. So why take one? Like, I like Tyler Shook as a quarterback. I like him as kind of like a round 3 and later flyer. Is he going to be the answer at quarterback though? Probably not. And they already have that kind of mystery box quarterback, if you will, in Spencer Rattler. So to double up in that case doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And they now have a quarterback room of Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener, and Tyler Shook. They're all so similar. Do you look at any of those guys and think, you're definitely going to be a franchise quarterback? No. Do all of those guys kind of have that potential? Maybe barring Jake Haener? Yeah, maybe. I mean, well, also Derek Carr, we know he's not a franchise quarterback, really, but he has previously been one. And there's just a lot of overlap with these guys, right? Derek Carr's got a bum shoulder. So does Tyler Shook. Spencer Rattler has intriguing upside. So does Tyler Shook. One of those guys, though, in terms of Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shook, one of those guys was a 5th rounder. The other was a 2nd rounder. They're going to be drafting a quarterback, we presume, highly next year. So why not just give the season to Spencer Rattler? Either he takes you to the verge of the playoffs in a week at NFC South. Great, you then got an intriguing, exciting young quarterback. Or more likely, he takes you to first overall pick contention, in which case, great, you finally get your Drew Brees replacement. You can finally draft a quarterback with a first-round pick, which the Saints haven't done for decades, and finally turn this team around from being aggressively mid, which it's been since Drew Brees retired. I think this is a bad pick. I like Shook, and it was a reach for me even for Shook, but I like him as a prospect, so that's kind of what saved it as an F, but this is still getting a firm D from me. Now, the Cowboys had the 44th overall pick, and they redeemed themselves after taking Tyler Booker, which I didn't really love, by drafting Donovan Ezaraku, the edge from Boston College. And getting Ezaraku at 44, I'm a big fan of that. He was my 24th ranked player, so that is great value, I would say. He's got the production, he has 16 sacks and 60 pressures this year, and he definitely was not benefiting from playing on a dominant defensive line unit as a whole. It was basically just him, and he's got a great bag of pass rush moves. This guy's a technician along the same vein as like a Laiatu Latu. Just has so many different pass rush moves, knows when to use them, and doesn't just win with pass rush moves. He's winning with like tempo and nuance of the position, which I absolutely love. Like, I really do love Donovan Ezaraku, sorry. The reason why he was a bit lower for me, only 24, is because he doesn't really have a power profile, which is a shame, because if he did, I think he would have been arguably edge 2 behind Abdul Carter. But by having no real power profile, it's quite hard for you to be like the edge one. But what's great is that Ezaraku on the Cowboys obviously doesn't have to be that. He's playing opposite Micah Parsons, one of the best edge rushers in the league. And he's going to stumble into like 6 sacks minimum in his rookie season by just doing cleanup duties on Micah Parsons. And let me be clear, Ezaraku is much better than just a cleanup duty guy. He's a good guy in his own right, good player in his own right. But it just means that he's in a fantastic position to get some production immediately. And the Cowboys have their big boys in the middle of Marcy Smith, they drafted a few years ago from Michigan, and Osa Odigizuru as well. And I think Ezaraku is going to be quite a quietly productive player, only because Micah Parsons is perennially going to get so much media attention, so much fan hype, and rightly so. But Donovan Ezaraku, I think, is going to be a fantastic Robin to Parsons' Batman, and he's going to be producing all the time for years to come. We finally saw Will Johnson, the cornerback from Michigan, come off the board with the 47th overall pick to the Arizona Cardinals, and he was unfortunately one of many to fall victim to the injury concern slide that we saw from quite a few players like Jihad Campbell, and there was also potentially some effort concerns there as well, which probably didn't help, but I don't know about the injury, right? NFL teams do, and I can only read between the lines and see that he fell all the way out of the first round, even past the Chargers, where they have Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator, and Harbaugh, both from Michigan, both Michigan guys. So for him to pass that team and fall out of the first round entirely, it's obviously quite serious. I don't know exactly how serious. We can only read between the lines there. However, at 47, I love the value. I have a much better feeling about accepting the risk there, basically. It's a much easier pill to swallow if you draft a corner like that in the second round, which the Cardinals have done here. And they have a need at corner. So it is a high risk, kind of high reward pick. But if the reward is there and the Cardinals do end up getting a cornerback who projects like he could be one of the better cornerbacks in the league, then I'm totally fine with that pick, and I would say it's a steal. I would give it an A+. I had Will Johnson as my 9th overall player. To get a guy who could be one of the better corners in the league with the 15th pick in the second round, when usually you have to draft those guys before the 15th pick in the first round, I feel pretty good about that. Yes, there's the injury discount, which you have to take into consideration, obviously. And again, I don't know the full extent of these injuries, but what I do know, what I have seen with my own eyes is his tape, and he is a good player. So yes, injury risk, which is why he's fallen. You can't ignore that. But fundamentally, the risk is well worth the potential reward here, all the way down at 47. I think this is a great pick. Now, there's only one B grade on this list because obviously they're my favorite and they're my least favorite picks. So they're either going to be A's and A pluses or kind of C's and below. But I do have to talk about the Raiders taking Jack Bech, the wide receiver from TCU, with the 59th overall pick. I just love this player so much. He is such a useful player, can be that X, he can play in line, he used to be a tight end, he can be a big slot as well. He's a really good blocker from that tight end background, really safe hands, only one drop in 2024, has a contested catch rate of 61.3% over his career, really nuanced route runner, can play through contact, got good agility, and I had him ranked at 50, so there's no value add here taking him at 59. But what I do just want to say is that I think this pick is kind of the perfect embodiment for how the Raiders have approached this whole offseason and what their outlook is now looking as a team. They've now got Ashton Jeanty in the backfield. The biggest possible upgrade you could have. Their running back room last year wasn't bad because they had a bad run game due to a bad offensive line. Their offensive line's pretty good, actually. They were bad because they had bad running backs. So taking Ashton Jeanty, that upgrade, I would say there's no bigger upgrade that will happen this offseason in terms of getting one player in and having a jump in production from that player than having Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders. So you've got Jeanty in the backfield, you've got Brock Bowers, obviously, as the kind of big slot tight end, fantastic player. Jacoby Myers, who was a very underrated wide receiver, had 1,000 yards last year. And now you add Jack Bech, who I think is one of the more underrated receivers in this class. You've also got Geno Smith, a very underrated quarterback. And they have an underrated offensive line, like I've said. So I think the Raiders are going to be a team which are going to kind of surprise a lot of people, although they shouldn't really, because if you look at this, if you look at the depth chart, if you look at their roster, they're a talented team. They've got Pete Carroll as their new head coach. I think the Raiders are going to be a good team next year, which, you know, is a far cry from what the Raiders have been recently, unfortunately, kind of like aggressively mid, really. But this Jack Bech selection is kind of the embodiment of the Raiders' entire offseason, kind of going a bit under the radar, but has been really good if you kind of look beyond the more exciting picks that are going on. And I had to shout out the player. I absolutely love the player. Jack Bech, obviously, unfortunately, had a lot of things happen to him off the field this year, which are terrible, and we all, I'm sure, are rooting for a player like that. But I just love where he's gone. I love him as a prospect, both on and off the field. He's someone that I will be rooting for, even if he's playing in, even if he has to move to the AFC South and play against my team. Jack Bech is a player that I just love, and I had to shout him out here because I'm happy he's been drafted, gone to a great place, and I think he's going to really produce there. Now, going from the highs of Jack Bech to the lows at 60, where the Denver Broncos took RJ Harvey, the running back from UCF. This, I'm going to come out and say immediately, it's already on the screen, I know, but this is a D. I did not like this pick at all. It's a bad pick. RJ Harvey was drafted as RB5. RB5 in a really strong running back class. It's not like it was last year's class or a weaker class. RB5. He was taken ahead of Cam Scatterboot, Caleb Johnson, Damien Martinez, Dylan Sampson, Trevor Etienne, Jaden Blue. The list honestly goes on. All of those guys, by the way, I had ranked ahead of RJ Harvey. I had Harvey in the 120s. I had the exact position down below me right now. But he was someone that I saw as being a rotational back who's not that strong, isn't particularly explosive, not a great pass catcher, a bad pass blocker, and drafting that guy in the second round when it's a really deep running back class, you get another guy later, or even probably more likely RJ Harvey even later. I don't think very many teams are going to have that high a grade on RJ Harvey. It's just a huge miss. Really, I think they're quite lucky, the Broncos here. They're not getting an F from me because I do think that Harvey will produce in that offense, and maybe they do see Javonte Williams as being the kind of the guy, which is interesting considering he's had a severe injury history at this point. He's never really been able to produce like he did at UNC. I just think that not only were there so many better players on the board, if they really wanted Harvey, they could have got him later. And I do think that running back is a position they kind of do need to upgrade at. I like Javonte Williams, but they do need more of that kind of that bell cow. They could have taken Caleb Johnson to be that kind of guy. If they don't like that, if they don't want to run outside zone, which Caleb Johnson fits, then there's so many other good running backs. It's one of the better running back class we've ever seen. And you're taking RJ Harvey at RB5. I can't believe it. I did not believe it when I saw that pick come through. I thought there might have been a typo, or I might have been trolled by some Adem Schefter account who had tweeted something. No, RJ Harvey is RB5. It's a D. It's a miss. At 63, the Kansas City Chiefs took Omar Norman Lot, the defensive tackle from Tennessee. And this is a really simple one for me. This is getting an A+ because I think Omar Norman Lot is the best pure interior pass rusher in this class. 18.9% pass rush win rate, which led the class, led the country even, and a 30.8% pass rush win rate on true pass sets. Those are elite numbers. Those are elite numbers. I had him at 43 on my big board, so they got some good value as well. 20 picks difference at this point. There's still nothing to shake a stick at. And he's not a 3-down player, Omar Norman Lot, right? But you get him on the field on obvious passing downs, and he's going to do some damage. Get him on the field on, second and long, or third and medium and greater, and you have him playing next to, presumably on those downs, Chris Jones, one of the better interior pass rushers in the league. And quarterbacks are going to be running for their lives from those guys. And interior pressure absolutely throws most quarterbacks off, more so than pressure off the edge. So I think this is a really good pick. The Bills taking Landon Jackson, the edge from Arkansas, at 71, is a pick that by itself is a good one at all. Absolutely, I would have given it a B, maybe, B+, potentially. I had Jackson at 61, 10 picks difference this late in the draft doesn't really mean that much. So it's basically right where I would have taken him. And like I said, as a standalone pick, probably would have been a B, let's say. But what kind of bumps this up to an A- is that by drafting Landon Jackson, the Bills now have a really deep defensive line rotation. They've got Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, Joey Bosa, Michael Holt, AJ Epinesa, all off the edge, and now Landon Jackson. Those are 6 guys who can play. And what importantly, you want that amount of guys that can play, obviously to protect yourself from injuries, which inevitably happen, unfortunately, in the NFL, such a physical game. But more important, more specifically, is it protects Joey Bosa from potentially being injured. The Bills are a team which I think we all can agree, fantastic, really strong, should always make the playoffs every single year for as long as Josh Allen has legs that can carry him and an arm that can throw a football. But they've never been able to get over that hump and get past being a perennial playoff team into a perennial Super Bowl contender team. And what I think might help them is having someone like Joey Bosa off the edge to sack someone like a Patrick Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, which presumably in the AFC the Bills are going to face. But fundamentally, you need to keep Joey Bosa healthy, right? You need to have him on a limited snap count. And so by drafting Landon Jackson, who, again, as an individual player, good pick, B, but what he offers helps your team much more. It's basically kind of like an injury assurance. It's more like an injury prevention scheme for Joey Bosa, which I think could work in the playoffs when you unleash the Ferrari in the garage that is Joey Bosa after the good car, but certainly not, I don't want to say Honda Civic, which is the first car that comes to mind. Landon Jackson is much more than that. But what I'm saying is that you can kind of unveil the big guns later in the season, and that's why this pick gets bumped up from a B to an A-. The Pittsburgh Steelers taking Caleb Johnson, the running back from Iowa, with the 83rd overall pick is just such a Steelers pick, right? This guy already wears the Steelers colors coming from Iowa. You can see a photo of him on the screen already. He just looks like he plays for them already. And he basically already does. He's an amazingly smooth mover. This guy glides over the field. He's a one-cut runner. If he sees the gap, he takes it, runs hard. Bell cow running back stature, really good vision, I think good anticipation, 66 missed tackles forced. That's 12th in the country last year. And I had him as my RB6, ranked 62, so it's good value. And I think this is the perfect embodiment of, good value, good fit, fantastic fit, actually, and a really good player as well. Because in Arthur Smith's offense, there's a lot of outside zone. And really, it depends on what scheme you're running that you're going to have a different board, right? Caleb Johnson was ranked a bit low because he had to go to an outside zone heavy team, a zone run game team. And I'm just doing my boards for any team, right? But he's gone to, I would say, the perfect team. Like Johnson would arguably have been my RB3 if I was just looking at running backs that would fit the same type of offense that the Steelers run. And you getting that with the 19th pick in the 3rd round, This is just an easy A for me. And finally, we're ending on not a great pick, and that is the Cleveland Browns taking Dillon Gabriel, the quarterback from Oregon, with the 94th overall pick. I am not a Dillon Gabriel guy. He was my QB8, but I had him in the let someone else draft him tier. And as a prospect, there's definitely things to like for Gabriel. Absolutely. He's an experienced field general quarterback who's, got good processing and great experience, but he's small at 5'11" with below average arm talent and is pretty cautious as well. He's the definition of a good college quarterback, not a good NFL quarterback. And I think there are better quarterbacks on the board. Shedeur Sanders, obviously, right? Kyle McCord, definitely. Will Howard for me as well, definitely. I get avoiding Sanders because the Browns are clearly lining themselves up to take a quarterback in 2026, and Sanders would just give you kind of like average quarterback level play right out of the gate, and that'd be pretty difficult. And you don't want to take a quarterback like Sanders that early to then come off him 1 year later. That'd be a nightmare media-wise with Dion, obviously, which is a degree to why Shedeur has fallen. But if it's just a 1 year flyer who will potentially be a long-term backup, I would have taken McCord or Howard over Dillon Gabriel. And I also thought that maybe they took Dillon Gabriel to like tank with almost, be like, look, we're drafting a quarterback, we're trying, and oh no, he's lost us enough games that we're picking third overall now. But they've got Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett on the roster. Joe Flacco will give you average quarterback level play. Kenny Pickett is the perfect tanking quarterback. Super Bowl winner, by the way. Don't you forget that. I just don't really see what drafting Dillon Gabriel has achieved here. Again, if you want a long-term high-level backup, Will Howard is your man. Kyle McCord is your man. That's perfect. Gabriel, not so much. And if you want to tank, Kenny Pickett. I don't get the pick. I really don't, so it's getting a C- from me. So those are all of my favorite and my least favorite picks in this draft, in rounds 2 and 3 on day 2 of the NFL draft. We obviously have the final rounds tonight, but let me know your thoughts. What did you think of the second round or even the first round? Let me know in the comments. Did you agree with my grades or disagree with my grades? Make sure you subscribe for more draft content. But I've been your host, Dom Corbs. This has been Corbs NFL. I'll see you on the next video.